right. Hey guys, welcome back to Freelance Blueprint. My name's Margaret, and today we're actually going to go through the state of freelance web development in 2020, and we're going to go through, is it a market that's currently saturated, and how can you stand out as a new developer or as an experienced developer as it gets more saturated into 2020 and of course into 2021. So let's look at the state of freelance web development. Awesome. So today we're basically going to go through these three different columns that I've got. So we're going to look at the current state. Then we're going to look at the pools. When we dig into the pools, I'll let you know sort of a little bit more about what that means. And then we're going to go into like what's next. How do we succeed in 2020? How do we succeed in 2021? Because let's be real, 2020 is coming to a close real quick. And we also want to start planning for the future as well, too. So the current state, let's dive in. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening right now in the state of web development. There are some things to look over, keep in mind, and that's what we're going to future-proof against. So, as I'm sure you're aware, the landscape in the last 5 months has drastically changed. It's drastically changed how people do business in general, and that's had an effect on us as web developers, especially freelance web developers that work with small businesses, both brick and mortar and online. So we've seen a few different trends. We've seen an increase in demand. We've seen an increase in just the amount of sites. We've definitely seen an increase in sales. And these all work to our benefit. So these are all great. People need us for these things. The other thing is we've definitely seen an increase in supply. So I'll go through what these mean. Increase in demand. We've seen companies like Upwork have record numbers of job postings. We've seen a ton of new sites go up, especially in the online retail space for people who did own brick and mortar that are moving into retail. So we've seen a ton of WordPress and a ton of Shopify. Speaking of Shopify in sales, we've seen numbers in these last few months that are comparable to Black Friday and Cyber Monday numbers. So the Shopify statistics for sales have also been through the roof. These are all great things for us as front-end developers because these are things we can help our clients succeed in, troubleshoot in, and ultimately grow through and past. This last one here is the one that's a challenge. The last one basically means that there's more supply. So there's more freelancers in the field. And this could be for a lot of reasons. People are losing their jobs, so they are turning to freelance and the gig economy just growing in general. We're also seeing education being much more accessible in an online capacity. So we're seeing more online courses, more boot camps, and it's actually a good thing for us because it's the ability to improve our knowledge base no matter where we are in the world. So the good thing is about this increased supply, it's an increased supply in freelancers, but it's also an increased supply in education. We're getting more places like Udemy, Skillshare, having more courses dedicated to programming and web development. So there's an opportunity to improve your skill set at any point in time. More education. Ultimately, this could mean more freelancers in the market, but we're going to start to look at saturation a little bit later as well. So let's dive into the pools. Now that we've established what's going on right now, what do I mean by pools? So by pools, I mean there's different groupings that freelancers fall into. I'm going to make a little one over here too. So typically either people go for the freelancing websites, and for the freelancing websites, we go for Upwork, Freelancer, I think TopTal is the other one. And there's people who specifically build their client base through these applications. There are some pros and cons that we're going to go over for freelancing sites. So we're going to go over some pros and cons here. Great. The other pool is a self-made client base. This is where we want to live. And I'm going to go through why we want to live here as opposed to living here. So in here, we're going to be building our own business. We're going to be building a steady income. We're going to have more brand recognition if we're building it on our own brand by ourselves and not using this software. And then since we're building it by ourselves, we're going to increase the know, like, and trust factors. So why would someone need to choose one pool over the other? There is a small percentage of people that do both, but we're going to focus on the differentiating factors, and I'll get to this one a little bit later as well too. Now let's talk about who's in this one. So this one's going to be a lot of custom WordPress, maybe with membership sites, because those take a little bit more specialization, and maybe a custom Shopify theme. Now, the biggest difference between these two are you are building your client base through referrals, you're building it through quality of work, and you are building your individual brand that isn't reliant on specific softwares. That's why we're going to focus big time on this here. It's a lot more sustainable. And truthfully, if your business relies on external softwares finding all of your clients for you, it is not a viable long-term business. So let's go into the pros and cons of freelancing, like using the freelance websites rather. And we're going to go into, because I think the biggest question actually is, how do we break into this one? How do we start to build it, especially if the market is getting more and more saturated? And that's what we're going to go into all in this column here. So let's break down the freelancing sites to begin with. The pros, they find postings for you. So they find the postings, which is great. The money is guaranteed. And what I mean by guaranteed, I don't mean that you're guaranteed to make money. I mean that once the client pays for the service, it's held in escrow. And then once the job is complete, then the money is released to you. So you avoid clients taking off and basically not paying for you because they act like a middleman in that capacity as well. So let's dive into some cons. Some cons that I found for this one are speaking to some top workers on these freelancing sites like Upwork. They have to do upwards of 10 plus proposals per day. So instead of dedicating your practice and your business to building your client base, building your knowledge, working on brand strategy for both yourself and your clients, you are chasing jobs by doing 10 plus proposals per day just to try to be one of the top performers on this platform as well. You also have people competing on price. So what happens when people start competing on price is you're going to be listed in the directory of everyone that's capable of doing a job and has the correct skill set. So if people are competing on price and you want to charge a higher price, a lot of the times you'll be automatically eliminated. So a lot of times people looking for a developer on here will just look at the price range as the only criteria. And we're going to break out of that because we want to create a business where price is not the determining factor. We want to put you in a situation where if a client cannot afford to work with you, they save up to be able to work with you because that conveys so much more value. So let's go back to a couple more cons here. We already have up to 10 plus proposals per day, competing on price. And like with that 10 proposals a day, you're doing a lot of admin work, meaning a lot of communicating, following up with these proposals, not knowing if they've taken another job or not, while you're still going after them. So there's also a lot of admin work here too for jobs that you're not even really guaranteed to get in the first place. So these are all the reasons why we don't like starting on these sites, and we don't like using these sites as the primary source of income, and we don't like building our business on these sites because, again, to circle back to what we said before, if you build your business on somebody else's software and on someone else's business model, that is not a viable long-term business solution. Okay, so now that we've established we're not going after this, we are going after long-term clients. We're going to tie it all together in this last column here. So this may sound counterintuitive, but the key is niching down. So the number one thing to rise above, you must narrow down. Again, sounds counterintuitive, and I've fought this for a huge amount of time in the beginning of my freelance career because it sounds like narrowing your niche down, you would narrow your pool down and therefore not get as many opportunities. But I'm here to tell you it's completely the opposite. So let's break it down. We're going to break down an exact example of how you can rise above the other pools and really begin to build your business as a freelancer in 21-22. I know we use the word freelancer because that's the common term that we're used to, but ultimately we are looking to build a profitable, long-term, sustainable business, and this is not the way. So our energy is dedicated, now that we know this is not the way, our energy is dedicated to improving our business model and really honing down on our skill set. Okay, so we need a really specific combination, can't spell specialized, of specialized skills and flexibility in range. These two things might also sound counterintuitive, but this is where we start to pull everything together. So I'm going to give you a very specific example, and then we're going to sort of reverse engineer it into these categories and see how something like this could work. So let's say as a freelance web developer, you have specialization in very niche areas, but also the flexibility to wind those together to create a strategy for your clients. So as an example, put a little example in here. Let's say you have the ability to set up Instagram feed and have it directly integrated into the Shopify store. They don't even need a whole store built out. So say we're getting like the lowest plan where it still just uses the Shopify checkout. If you're a Shopify specialist, you'll know what I'm talking about. So use an Instagram feed integrated with the Shopify checkout cart, and then we optimize the site for retargeting. And then we've got, of course, mailing list platforms, and then we bring them into a funnel. So what does this have to do with the rest of it? Well, if you as a developer niche down to develop a very specific set of skills that are relevant, especially today, and if we look at the landscape of things where we're seeing so many retailers shutting down now and they need an online solution, maybe they can't afford to build a whole online shop. So you know very specific information about a few different services or in a few different softwares. So you're intimately familiar with Instagram and social. You know about Shopify, and you've developed sites before and you have a really good handle on the development side of Shopify. You also have the marketing skills and background to be able to build a funnel that retargets. So ultimately that retailer can bring their entire shop online into their Instagram. So this scenario, being that specific, you are not in this pool. You're not in this pool. This pool does not get that specific. And to be this specific, you know that to put these elements together, you have a lot of things going for you. You have the best interest of your customer. You're interested in building their revenue as well as yours. And it shows your client base that you have a very specific set of skills in these areas. This helps you stand out from the rest. It builds a know, like, and trust factor because you've obviously done these sort of things before. You build brand recognition for yourself because you are the person that can bring people from an online retail place onto the web and get sales without even having them to build a whole website dedicated to it. You have very specific skill sets that can also bleed into that. So people that know you for this kind of thing, they're also going to contact you for Shopify. They're also going to contact you for marketing and strategy and funnels. So you think that niching down limits you, but it actually really expands. And that's when we get into these two different aspects. So we have specialized skills because like I said, these elements individually are very specialized. But also we have the range and flexibility and strategy to bring them together in the best interest of your client profiting. So that's what brings us here. That's what brings us here. And that's also what kind of brings us here as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one. Here we see that it's a bigger pool, because something like this, and this is just one example. I mean, there's other examples like this too. You can niche down integrating WordPress and Salesforce together. So there are some very specific softwares out there that need integration and need specialized integration. I would say for 2021, that's definitely the way to go, to know how to integrate very unique sets of software that are relatively frequently used together. So custom WordPress sites, custom Shopify sites, people will go to you for those as well, because again, a lot of the times if someone wants a custom Shopify theme built, this is not the place, in my experience, these are not the places that they're going to go. They're going to go through referrals, they're going to go through friends, they're going to go through places that are high rated. So that's why we see this as a bit of a bigger pool. I got a smaller pool off to the side because that would fit more than something like this. This is a very niche use case scenario, and I believe in this market, it has the ability to scale. 3 years ago, maybe not, but we're seeing an opportunity where everyone is bringing their brick and mortar places online. So if you had niched yourself into this tiny little bubble that didn't really have much crossover with anything else, you would see a huge spike right now. So again, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning here. Our current state, we've got an increased demand, which is awesome. We've got an increased number of sites. We've got an increased sales in Shopify, reflecting numbers like we've seen in Cyber Monday and Black Friday. We also have an increased supply. So our goal is to differentiate ourselves from other freelancers, as well as improve our skill set to be able to charge more money and become more specialized. So then we go into the pools. There's of course a few different pools. We've got our freelancing websites. We went through the pros and cons there. We also have the other pool, which we want to stay in and then dip ourselves into this really outside one, which is basically extremely niche categories. And these are the ones you'll get a ton of referrals to. These are the ones, if they find someone that has the specialization that's so specific and they know other people who are in need of that service, you will get a ton of referrals for this as well. There's a book called The Blue Ocean Strategy. Basically, that goes into making a market for yourself and not diving into an existing market. We're doing that a little bit here, and we're definitely doing it here when we narrow down to that level. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. It's not unique. It's not fulfilling, ultimately, and it's not a business model. It's not something that you as a business can grow, because ultimately, if one of these sites that you're on shuts down, your business is over. So we don't make our business reliant on other people's software. We build it from scratch ourselves. We went through the pros and cons of freelancing, of the freelancing websites, and then we went through what to do next. And it's this really magic combination of specialized skills plus flexibility. This was a great example. Another example was getting proficient and going through the Salesforce training, looking at softwares that are growing so quickly. So Salesforce, for one, growing so quickly. TikTok's growing super quickly. I actually don't know much about the development of TikTok. So if you can find some way to bring it into a strategy, to bring it into an existing website, to ultimately sell stuff on a Shopify site, but through TikTok, I don't think that's possible right now. But looking down the future and really being critical and analytical of the softwares that are expanding right now and diving into those fields to specialize. Salesforce is not going anywhere. Instagram's not going anywhere. Shopify's not going anywhere. So this is our plan that we've established. I'll put this up here. And ultimately, these are the points that we're going to finish with here. We want to solve problems. And quickly adapt by knowing what is possible. So instead of filling out the 10 plus proposals per day for those kind of sites, you're investing your time in educating yourself and increasing your skill set. So you start doing the research. What are the softwares that are up and coming? What's going to need to be integrated to each other? And how can I best serve? How can I best serve the people that are going to be in need of this? This will make you unstoppable in web development. Everyone will come to you. You'll be known as a specialist and an expert in the field. And that's how we build our business. All right, so check out the description below for a couple links and all sorts of freelance resources. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click that bell for notifications. Okay, see you next time, guys.